nutshell introduction into meditation. We will explore tonight to this morning, but maybe we can just start with a few moments. We allow the body to be comfortable. Let the breathing be regular and deep. Allow the hands to relax, the arms, the shoulders, the feet. The muscles of the neck. Just let everything relax. And for a few moments we completely accept the surroundings. We completely accept the body as it is. There may be noise, or someone may walk in or walk out. We just accept. And allow the body to become completely calm and relax. And we withdraw the attention from the external. And we as if become more aware of our inner world. The one who is experiencing everything. The one who is creating thoughts and feelings. And we just become aware of the energy of my mind. And whilst acknowledging the external, I turn more and more the attention towards the internal. Aware the self as a thinking being, the experiencer. And we visualize this conscious self as a tiny star in the center of the forehead. We hold that image of light as a presence, a being of consciousness, a being of light. One who is a guest in this physical world. One who is a guest in this body. And we just hold this calm, whilst focusing all the attention on the being of light. Tiny star, guest. And we don't really need to see light, but just understand the inner self, the being of consciousness, is like light. Representing life, representing the experiencer. The soul. And this being of light is timeless, changeless, immortal soul. we just come back to that original, clean feeling, almost childlike state of pure, innocent, playful, free being. And I see and feel the wonder of that original nature, of these refined feelings. Pure, peaceful, soul. And as we choose to come to the end of this meditation exercise, we aim to hold this kind of introverted attitude whilst going through the rest of the morning. Thank you. How was the concentration? Good. Relaxing. Very good. Okay, so these two sessions, so today and next Saturday, 2 sessions is like a introduction into Raj Yoga meditation, and it is also we will share some basic steps on how you can start meditating, how you can build up your meditation, and would like to encourage dedicating time for it. Anything you want to learn, anything you want to do, it starts with dedicating time for it, no? So this is, it is actually called easy Raj Yoga, an easy meditation. And it is easy, but it is easy if you do it with a certain regularity. So we would encourage to every day dedicate some time. And the easiest way to do that is to get up a little earlier and take time before you start the day. 5 minutes, 10 minutes to dedicate. So this was like little suggestion. If you do this, you will be mastering it very soon. it is a combination of spiritual knowledge and meditation exercises, because the understanding is to really properly meditate. You also need some understanding of spiritual knowledge first. So we will do a combination of both, some knowledge, some exercises in meditation, some knowledge, some exercises in meditation. But sometimes the idea exists that meditation means stopping to think. And have you tried to stop thinking? You've tried? Did you succeed? So we feel that there's not really any need to stop thinking. But meditation is more the process of learning to guide your thoughts into a more constructive direction, in the creation of spiritual thinking. And like thinking is natural for the soul, for us. Just like breathing is natural. Have you tried to stop breathing? No, fortunately not. And there's no need to stop breathing, but we can be breathing wrongly. And if we breathe wrongly, it gives problems physically. So in the same way, the idea is that thinking is not a problem, but we have not learned, or we have forgotten to how to think properly. We have lost control over the process of thinking. And so meditation is simplified saying taking back that control and learning again how to think, what to think, and at what pace to think. So meditation is not trying to block your mind out and be in a space of emptiness. At least this practice of meditation. There may be practices where people try that, but this practice of meditation is not aiming for that. So you don't need to suppress your mind or suppress your thinking, but rather learn to redirect your thinking. And so the understanding is that thinking is natural, but if this is our mind, it can happen that it is flooded with all kinds of thoughts, and that some of those thoughts are stronger than other thoughts. And those thoughts that are stronger than other thoughts, they come again and again and again, and they bully the others out of the out of their time and space. So certain thoughts come again and again and again and again, and even against our conscious wish. Now meditation is the process where we consciously put spiritual thoughts. No, what I'm putting in red represents spiritual thoughts in our mind. And we hold those there. And at any one moment in time, only one thought can be in the picture, you could say, in the spotlight. Only one thought can be experienced by us. But because we think so many thoughts and we do not properly guide the mind, we jump from one to another to another to another, and the one that screams the loudest gets the most attention again and again and again and again. You get an idea? Now these are just maybe some 3, 4, 6, 8, 12 thoughts. How many thoughts you think you have in a day? Thousands. Very good. Thousands. Now, if these dynamics go on during the day and you have thousands of thoughts, you can have an idea of the condition of your mind and what we experience from that, this chaos. So, a spiritual journey means to clean up this and to get more and more thoughts in the mind that are of spiritual content, that are of a content where a broader perspective is seen and experienced. And the process of meditation is you put spiritual thoughts in the mind and you hold them there, because every thought has its theme, you could say. And so every thought has feelings with it. Feelings and emotions. Every thought has a certain attitude connected to it. Every thought has certain imaginations. Every thought has its own vibration. Every thought has its own vision and perspective. Every thought has its own. There was one more. Which was it? Attention. Yeah. Interests behind. So behind every thought, there is this whole theme hanging there. But if we jump from one thought to another, to another, to another, to another, back to the same, back to another, back to the same, these cannot properly express themselves, cannot be fully coming to the surface and be experienced. Now, that is why sometimes it happens that we feel blocked inside. We feel as if we're not in touch with, how do they call it? I'm not in touch with my heart, or those kinds of expressions. It is because we have not allowed the world behind every thought to manifest, to be experienced. And if we have many different kinds of thoughts, then there are many different feelings and emotions as if unexpressed, suppressed in there. Now, if the thought is a spiritual thought, the theme is spiritual. If the thought is a useless thought, then the theme hanging behind it is useless. If we have negative thoughts, then the theme behind it is negative. If we have positive or constructive thoughts, then the theme is constructive and positive. And this gives a little bit of an insight into the dynamics of our consciousness. But it also gives you an insight on how useful it would be if we can be more master of this. Because at this moment in time, for many of us, this just happens to us. We just kind of we don't even know what is happening properly. Annie, you want to say anything or comment on this? Yeah. 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 That's okay. We accept that. It is like, if you have wild horses and you want to train them, it will take little time, no? And especially if they are used to running wild. Now you say to them, be quiet, sit down. What they gonna do? They will say, what's wrong with you? All the time you just let me roam loose, and now you're telling me to sit down. Okay, I will sit for half a minute and then I'm off again. Hmm? So it is like teaching our mind again what to think, how to think, but with kindness, with love, with gentleness, but with certain determination. So you come back again and again and again. And what happens is more you put spiritual thoughts and this theme of refined feelings and emotions flood the mind, you start feeling more pleasant. And the mind starts saying, this is nice. So gradually becoming accustomed again, becoming aware again of how pleasant it is. But teaching yourself with kindness, with gentleness, with love. And there is another faculty within us which we call the intellect. And the intellect is as if the guide for the mind. Now the intellect can only guide the mind into topics where there is knowledge about. So, for example, if this mind is thinking about that there are thoughts here on what? I want ice cream, I want ice cream, I want ice cream. This one is demanding ice cream. If the intellect is not aware even of these dynamics, if the intellect is not aware of the impact of ice cream, if the intellect is not clear whether this is a good thought or a not so useful thought, then the intellect cannot take control. If the thoughts, if I want to put spiritual thoughts, if I want to put thoughts of peace, for example, or of gratitude in the mind, or thoughts of soul, thoughts about the inner self, it means the intellect needs knowledge of that, to know which thoughts are right and which thoughts are useful, which thoughts to hold there. Now, if the intellect only knows about politics and movies, then whatever thoughts are there, intellect will allow thoughts of movies and politics and movies and politics and movies, and then maybe we hear something from someone else, or we listen to something from someone else, cannot relate to that. So it will constantly allow thoughts here only of what there is proper information about. Understand? So the way to get into meditation is first of all to understand these dynamics, but also to get an insight into what kinds of spiritual thoughts can I have and hold in the mind to create feelings of peace, to create feelings of calm and freedom and safe or timelessness. Understand? And then that can be experienced. You want to say anything? Yeah. Just through informing myself. This is why you're sitting here, to get more information about spiritual knowledge. And more you get spiritual knowledge and you have that interest, then the intellect can choose those thoughts and hold those thoughts more. But you need to acquire that information. Now, if you have interest about carpentry and you want to get information of carpentry, then we cannot help you. Then you have to go somewhere else. But the moment you take in that knowledge, you will start thinking about it more, especially if there is interest in that area also. And there is some bigger idea of carpentry in the future, then you will start, and then you will start searching on internet also and ask Mr. Google what he knows about, and Mr. YouTube what he knows about carpentry, and you will start thinking more and more, and mind will become more filled with those kinds of thoughts. Now, if there is the interest in spirituality, if there is the interest in meditation, you fill your intellect with knowledge about that. And that is why you have come here. And more you use that knowledge, meaning you think about it, you allow the intellect to every time put thoughts about spiritual themes in the mind, it grows and the intellect becomes stronger also. It is simple, but it is new. It is not new, but we generally don't think about these things. We are generally so focused on external things, on carpentry, for example, or on, what is it, IT or something, Facebook. We know how Facebook works because we have given that information to our intellect. And we have put those thoughts in the mind and we have acted on those thoughts. So then thoughts are pulled there also. Okay. So now the question is, what are spiritual thoughts? What kind of thoughts can I think about spirituality? And therefore it is useful to have an idea what kind of thoughts we can have also. No? We can have necessary thoughts, and there are many thoughts that are necessary. For example, Monday at 10 I have a board meeting. That's a useful thought, and you put it in your agenda. And then you don't have to think about it anymore. True? You have only to think about it once. I have a board meeting at 10 Monday morning. You put it in your agenda and finish. But then what happened? We think it again, and we think it again, and we think it again. It becomes a useless thought. And then we get annoyed. That becomes a destructive thought, a negative thought. So there are many different kinds of there are different categories of thoughts, but then within those categories there are many varieties, because negative thought can be so many different themes of thoughts. But spiritual thoughts are about the spirit, thoughts about the inner being, thoughts about the self, the true self, the soul. And therefore hello. completely forgot. Can you give me a moment? I completely forgot. So normally when we think of ourselves, when we think of the world, when we think of life, we think of the body and we think of the things around the body, the objects, maybe a house or nature or dollars or our cell phone. And what is this? What is that? Kanubriya? No, this is the cell phone. Bag. The handbag. Or this, what is this? It has no pizza. But it could have been ice cream. We think about entertainment and movies, and we think about other people, our relationships and connections. We think about all kinds of things. But many times we forget the inner being or the real self, the one who is experiencing all of this. And we use this image of light to indicate the invisible self, the being that creates thoughts and feelings. So the first type of thoughts that we use in meditation is around this. To acknowledge, to understand there is an external physical dimension. The world of sound, the world of movement, the world of action, the world of time. But there is an inner world or a non-physical dimension. And this word human being also indicates that. Human is all of this in blue. And being is this in red. But most of our time and thoughts and thinking usually is around all of this. True or not true? And now spirituality says that's very good. But now we turn our attention away from this for a while and also explore this inner being, the self. But we are not used to doing that because we are generally so impressed by all of this that we can't stop thinking about it. We're generally so trapped even in it that we can't stop thinking about it. And that is because we have started to get attached to these things. We've started to identify with all of these things. And we've forgotten the inner being, the real self. And more so, the nature of the soul is completely different from all of this. All of this is temporary. All of this is changing all the time. And it changes unpredictably. Soul is non-physical and so timeless, free, clean. And so creating spiritual thoughts, one thought is the real self is a non-physical being of light, a timeless being. And this body is a vehicle for a temporary period of time. This being, the soul, is a guest in this body, the guest in this world, a traveler through time and space. And the nature, the original nature of the self, the soul, is of freedom, is of purity, is of peace, is of love. And we innately are that. We have come here to express that, but we have forgotten. So all of these thoughts are spiritual thoughts. All of these kinds of thoughts are thoughts for meditation. And to explore, for example, timelessness or immortality of the soul. This is mortal. This is mortal. This is less than mortal even. All of these things are changing and can be changing even today. Even this body, I don't really have any guarantee about tomorrow. But the real self, the conscious living being, transcends the limitations of matter. And to get a taste of that again, to get those feelings again. When you are a traveler, how do you feel? When you, who enjoys New York City most? The tourists. Why? They have this wow of everything and anything. Even a hole in the street. They say, oh wow, in New York City, hole in the street. They see all kinds of people. They say, wow, interesting. This is a different scene, different experience. And they have that feeling because they are free. They are not attached. They are not too overly anxious or serious about it. It's like kind of a game. You're on holiday. Now just imagine if I am in that state of what we call soul aware or soul conscious. And we are tourists here. Tourists in this body. Oh wow, this is interesting. Tourists in this physical world. That kind of clean feeling of newness and wow. Everything is like a gift. No, for tourists, everything is a gift. They see this building, oh wow. They see Flatiron building, oh wow. They see the Empire State, oh, everything is like a gift. Someone goes by on a skateboard, wow, interesting, in the middle of New York City. Someone dressing like this, another one dressing like something. Everything is like, as a tourist, as a guest. If we are in that consciousness, we can get in that wow feeling. Meditation. It brings lightness. It brings, and it frees us from that, that, what is this word? This judgmental commenter that is in there all the time. Passing judgment, criticizing, this is not good, that not good, complaining. Get into that consciousness of the guest. Soul is a guest here. Soul is traveling through time and space. These are spiritual thoughts. And every spiritual thought has its theme with it. So if the intellect is trained to hold those spiritual thoughts in the mind, and even if it goes away, some other make it on the mind, again, intellect says, come back. Then some others come in the mind, intellect says, come back. Then you can start creating a reservoir of spiritual thoughts and spiritual feelings. And then that goes into the subconscious. And then you can be in the subway with the feeling of being a guest. And everything is wow. So many different variety of scenes come in front of you in the subway all the time. Very good entertainment. Get the idea? Any comments or questions? Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But if we practice soul awareness, soul consciousness, we can feel like being on a holiday all the time. You go to work and you think, oh wow, this is a new city. These are different people. You go home, this is a new city, different people. Yeah. Subway, different city, different people. Grocery store, different people, different city, different scenery. Every time it's like new. No, and try and play with this. Because there's a whole world in this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to. No? What happens is, if we truly come back to that original state of playfulness and that pure, clean state, dropping all attachments, that doesn't get stale. That doesn't get bored. But what happens, we kind of get attached to things and we get into expectations. And it means we lose that guest consciousness. And then we start to feel I own and I want and I need and mine and then I can lose. And then I get into all kind of complex feelings. But at this moment in time, in your meditation, just play with this new consciousness. something new. There is a whole world further, much more information. But to, at this stage, play with this and to get a feel of it and to get it clean. Not just like a child, I don't know if you have seen, or a baby. Every day they can play with the same toy. And every day they are as amused and as excited and as enthusiastic about it. They don't get into that complications. Or that's why they carry the same doll with them all over the place because they kind of, it is always that freshness. It is when we cross as if a line and get into this I and mine and start getting attached and start getting into ego about things, then complications come in. And expectations and demands. And then we lose that original experience. But that has become so normal now. And it has become the standard that we don't even realize that we can feel differently. Now, in pediatrics, there is the understanding, the first sign of the child being sick. You know what it is? How does a mother know child is sick, baby is sick, or toddler is not well? Can't even speak yet. But how does mother know they are not well? They stop playing. So the first sign of the laws of health is the laws of the spirit of play. And that has happened with the soul. We have lost that pure, innocent, playful attitude and perspective towards life. And then we become trapped, and then we become so serious and passionate in getting it back. And then we get further trapped. And then we get in expectations and desires and demands. And then we get more trapped. And then we get denied. So then we get into pain and sadness and more sadness and more sadness and depressed. And anyway, we know that pathway. So first of all, in this moment, just explore what it is. And maybe you will discover something new, something clean, something higher. And of course, we will be pulled back. But we can be, once you know, you can come out again. And make this more and more strong. And there is a world behind, which you will touch on next week, and also if you continue, there is much more to explore. Yeah? Okay, so let's do a meditation. So again, for a few moments, withdraw all your attention from the external. And consciously remind the self that this body is part of the external and the physical world, and that the inner being The real self, the soul, is the experiencer. Pure, peaceful, free, being of light like a star. An eternal, timeless, immortal soul. And this being, we can visualize as a star behind the eyes, in the center of this forehead. Imperishable, free, conscious star of light. A being that is a traveler through time and space. A being that is a tourist, a visitor. This body is a gift, temporarily to use. The whole physical world is extra for this traveler. And this traveler is a being of light, pure, peaceful, divine, free, living light. The real self is this eternal, immortal star, invisible to the human eye, but very real. And as we gradually come to the end of this meditation experiment, we aim to play with this during the rest of the morning. Thank you. Okay, there will be a short video to show a bit imagery around this concept. Kanupriya will help you with that. And then afterwards there will be a meditation and closing. Yeah. Okay. And the first